So, Bob, do you remember your first script? Your foray into?
Oh yeah, it was awful. Like it was bad. I wrote.
Aren't they usually? I mean, aside from Oathbound.
Yeah, no. The first thing Kevin.
First scripts are tough.
No.
That's not true. So like Bobby's going to call you out on the truth.
I'm not even going to do. I'll let you do it, Kevin.
I'll tell you. The first thing I wrote, and it's funny because the same guy had to work on Spirit of 666 that had to read my first script. So poor Ryan Cady, who works for Top Cow, he was doing submissions and having to read through scripts for the Top Cow talent hunt. And the first script I wrote,
I did a couple of those.
I did one, and it was the Magdalena was the character I chose to work on, and the script I wrote. I had been reading Alan. The only thing I had been reading, this is before Oathbound, was Alan Moore's Guide to Writing Comics, and that's the only thing I could find at the time in the store. So if you can take with that book, the information that Alan Moore's Guide to Writing Comics gave me, and told me what comics are supposed to look like, then I looked at a script from their website.
You need a newt's eye and a bubbling cauldron of...
a little verbose.
It was freaking 72 pages for a 22-page script.
Yes. Kevin's first script was 72 pages long.
Yes. Yes, it was.
But
and I cop to that all the time because it's the most awful mistake you could ever make. And that poor guy had to read. I don't think he finished it, to be honest.
Oh, he couldn't have. I think he probably skimmed a few pages.
And then was like, "This
sucks." Sorry.
When does this end?
You're definitely not winning. You suck.
But the thing is, though, it's a mistake that we all make. When I started writing comics, I had a friend who runs a bunch of cons, who does a bunch of stuff now. A guy by the name of Mike Federale. He asked me, he said, "Hey man, we read comics together." He said, "Hey, have you ever thought about writing comics?" And I said, "You know what, I have. I've always had an interest in writing. I was working in radio where I was writing bits and stuff like that." So I was like, "Yeah, I have had an interest." So him and I plotted out this like 14 issue like superhero thing where X, Y, and Z happens, and then this, that, and it's just this massive undertaking.
Kept going and going.
Yeah, with like, we were world building, and then we also had like side stories based on the original 14 issues. We were just dumb and had no idea what we were doing, but it was really, really fun. So you just kind of whittle yourself down and try to figure it out, but everybody does it. The first idea you have doesn't need to be 97 issues, 22 pages. Do a 5-page short, man. To do a 5-page. If I would have known that when I know now, my comics career may have looked a lot different. But like the first thing I wrote was this superhero thing about a guy in the superhero team who turns on the other members of the team, and now they have to. It's like it was The Watchmen basically. I was just writing a bad version of The Watchmen, but it was fun and I liked it, and then I just kept doing it, and slowly I got better, and that's all it took.
You learned by just effing up.
Yeah.
Like I did the same exact thing. Everyone always says start small, and I did the opposite. I don't think I heard that back then.
Nobody said that.
I think I started with
that's new info, man.
They don't tell you. They don't give you the heads up back then, which is what I kind of want to do with this show and this YouTube channel is try and get these same stories that we all have who've been doing it a while and get it out to newer creators at least so they don't make the same mistakes.
5 pages.
I think mine was probably 5 pages, something short. Mine was probably my first story, and I printed and paid for probably 60 pages of it, and it was probably 120 pages long. Ooh. The premise is still pretty good, but the pacing, that's something you got to learn, how you craft a page, the page turns, and just overall storytelling.
Establishing
your first
shots.
Script, you're not going to know.
I'm saying? Right. In your first script, you don't know what an establishing shot
you don't need,
is.
I think one of you said it before, you don't need the whole history. You don't throw that exposition and backstory on page 1. You slowly tease it and trickle it out. So I've read it recently, and it's just a bore and a snooze fest. But you learn by doing and fucking up.
Yeah, and that's what I've always said too, James. If I go back and read the first thing I ever printed and I like it, then I'm not growing. I'm not learning. The first thing I read, that I've written should be garbage. Like I should go, wow, this is really bad. I should be able to find decent things in there, and I think I can.